In 1974, 18-year-old Debbie Stone was hired to work at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Her specific role was to be a hostess at a brand new attraction called America Sings. Disney had basically converted an old carousel, which is a ride that spins around in a circle, into a rotating stage. And they put up partition walls all along this rotating stage to create 6 distinct stages. And so on each of these 6 stages were different sets of these robotic animals that played different songs about America. Debbie's job, she would go up before the very first act and she would greet the audience. And so on July 9th of that year, which was 9 days after this attraction had opened, she hopped on stage, she greeted the audience, and then she left the stage and the show began. She turned around and walked towards the back of the stage she was on. Each of the 6 stages that made up this attraction had a fairly tall back wall. And behind each of these 6 back walls that were in a ring was the center of the actual attraction, and in the center was this circular, fairly tall storage room. And the gap between the outside of the storage room and the back of any of these back walls was only a few inches. It was very narrow, but it was big enough that a person, in theory, could get stuck back there. So back on July 9th, after Debbie has said goodbye to the audience and she's walked towards the back of the stage she's on, she decides to move from the stage she's on to the adjoining stage. And she trips, which causes her to fall into the narrow space between the 2 back walls of the 2 stages she was on. She tries to pull herself up and pull herself out of the space, but she realizes she's stuck. And so she starts to panic and she starts screaming for help. And this audience, they're all talking loudly, there's music playing, they don't really hear her. And anyone that actually did hear her calling for help, they would later say they thought it was part of the show. And because Debbie has nowhere to go, when the stage began to rotate, she got forcibly dragged and twisted and rolled, and her body began to contort and bones started to break, and she was forced to continue moving through this narrow space because the stage was just going to keep on going until it reached its next position. And she's still not dead. She's screaming out for help. No one is coming to help her. And so the entire show would play out, with the stage rotating through all of its sections. And then finally, at the end of the show, when one of the audience members alerted the staff, hey, you should really go check out that screaming we heard. And at that point, they went for a look and they discovered Debbie, and she was very obviously deceased. Disney would pay a small settlement to Debbie's family, and then they would put up a number of safeguards on the America Sings attraction to make sure something like this never happened again.